Hey beautiful people, what is up and welcome back to my channel. I am Jamila and I love all things beauty. I love all things makeup. I love all things skincare, and I especially love sharing my tips and tricks for how to find high-end and luxury beauty products at bargain prices. If that sounds like something you're interested in, I would absolutely love if you would consider subscribing and joining the fam. Okay, so you already see we're doing a little bit of a declutter today. I'm not a big declutterer because typically things that I buy I enjoy and I want to keep, but my collection has gotten a little bit out of control. So I have my little tub of palettes that I want to declutter, and I'm not sure when this video going up, but I did film my basket of shame video, and there are palettes from that I'm actually going to declutter. I know palettes I have not used that I'm getting rid of. This just is a reminder that I need to make better choices with my life. But yeah, here we are. I have my iced coffee. I don't think this will be a long one, but if you want, get a snack, get some food, get some drinky drink, and yeah, let's just dive in. So I have this little basket of palettes in here. Some of these might actually be surprising to you guys, but they gotta go, y'all. And all of these palettes would be listed on my Mercari, which will be in the description box. So if you're interested in purchasing any of these, it will be there. I'm really not trying to like hike these up in any kind of pricing. Honestly, for me, it's about getting this out of my space because I feel cluttered and it feels a little, you know, suffocating. So I want to get these out of my space. I want to get these to a good home. So if any of these seem to interest you, check out my Mercari, send me a DM on IG, whatever makes sense, okay? So first one is this Essence Eye Palette. This is a neutral palette and it's a gorgeous neutral palette. Now, I don't have many drugstore palettes. I don't even remember why I have this one, but it's a really pretty cool toned neutral palette. I think it's gorgeous. I've used this once and I've never come back to it because when it comes to neutral palettes, we all have like a dime a dozen. This is one that is not going to be the first palette I think about, or even the third, fourth, or fifth palette I think about. Quite frankly, this ain't in my top 10. So because I'm not using this is definitely not one that I should keep in my collection because it's just going to waste. I will actually offer this to my sister first to see if she wants it. My older sister, she loves these kind of neutrally looks. So she might actually really enjoy this. That being said, the quality on this is phenomenal. Essence is definitely a brand you should not sleep on. It's not the best. It's not Patricia, it's not Natasha Denona, so I need you to manage your expectations when I say it's phenomenal. But it is really good for the price that it's at. So if you're not into paying Pat's and Natasha's and Huda's and Makeup by Mario prices, there are a lot of really great affordable drugstore brands that you can look into. You have to work a little bit harder, but if you don't care or you don't mind, then it's fine. The other one that I'm getting rid of is this Artemis palette from Alter Ego. Alter Ego is a dupe brand, so they dupe palettes from high-end brands. They typically do like Natasha Denona, and I think I've seen Huda. I know they've done a Pat McGrath. So they do those kind of luxury high-end brands, and they dupe it, the color story, like literally shade for shade, and they sell it at a much more affordable price. This is the Alter Ego dupe of the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. Now, I picked this up at the time when Metropolis was discontinued. As of right now, I believe it's back. So when it did come back, actually, no, I actually was able to find a Metropolis palette on Mercari, and I'd been dying to get my hands on that one, so I did pick it up. And now that I have the original, I don't need this one. The quality on this is phenomenal. The cream to matte formula, not the best, and definitely not Natasha Denona quality or even close, but everything else here really good. The shimmers are really nice. I actually did a video comparing this to the Natasha Denona palette, and quite frankly, you cannot tell the difference between the two on my eyes. I will link that down below if you want to check it out, but it was pretty impossible to tell which side was Natasha and which side was Metropolis. I mean, what is this called? Artemis from Alter Ego. So if you are interested in dupe palettes for some of these brands and you're not willing to pay the full price, I definitely say check them out. I know not everyone is into dupe brands or brands that dupe palettes from these other high-end brands, but I personally don't care. So it really is up to you and your stance on that. Next up, I am getting rid of the Lois Cosmetics Midnight Palette. I wanted to like this. And I saw the color story of this, and it was definitely one that I was like, oh, that is cute. Now, this is a UK brand, so it did take a while for me to get it. And the color story is still one that I find to be quite beautiful, but the shadows in here are subtle, but not the kind of subtle that I like. It's subtle to the point where I felt like I was working a little too hard. There was a little too much elbow grease that I needed to put into to make this work. The first look that I did with this, I did not like. The second look that I did with this, gorgeous, stunning. I almost reconsidered decluttering this one just because of the second look that I created. But when I really think about the amount of work that I have to put in to get this to look the way I want it to look, it's not worth it. It's not bad by any means. If you prefer a little bit lighter, softer, less pigmentation, you will probably like this. It's just not my taste. Okay, I'm also going to get rid of this Poison Apple palette from Alien Cosmetics. This is also another one that I felt like I had to work real hard for. No, this is, my packaging says Alien Cosmetics, right? It is currently Unearthly Cosmetics. I don't know if they've reformulated. I've heard that they reformulated, but I have no proof to say yes or no to that. So I don't know if this formula has improved. What I can say is that I thought I liked this. I liked the color story for this, and then I got it and I used it, and I realized that I didn't like this as much as I thought I did. I've used this twice. I did not like how the mattes performed. Did not like how the shimmers performed either. Not that they were bad. It's also one of those palettes that I felt like I had to work a little bit harder for. And I just don't think the Unearthly / Alien Cosmetics formula is for me. That's kind of what it boils down to. Now, I know they have those new palettes that they did. There's the Aaliyah one. I keep calling it the Aaliyah one, but I think it's called Warms My Blood or something like that. There's that collection, and I know that that's gotten pretty rave reviews. So it makes me feel like the formula in the newer palettes are different, but also the prices are different, and I just don't think that it's a brand that really I'm that interested in anymore. So I'm getting rid of that one. I like the looks that I created with it. Not terrible, but just not the amount of work that I want to put in, and also not a color story that I'm gonna reach for. I don't know why I thought I was so into that color story, because reflecting on it now and after looking at it, I was like, girl, what you gonna do with this? And this one I believe is discontinued from the brand, so you can't get it anymore. So yeah, I don't know why. I'm also going to get rid of this Celestial Storm palette from Dominique Cosmetics. I had been holding on to this for a really, really long time because I love the color story of this. This is a beautiful color story. I've used this maybe twice, and I still think the color story is beautiful. I just don't like the Dominique Cosmetics formula. Just don't. Like, I know that they have a neutral palette that everybody swears by, but this formula, she's just not for me. She is just not for me. I also decluttered the purple one that they had, plus that nude one that they had. And I kept that one because I love the color story so much. But now that I'm really like thinking about it, I'm like, you like the color story, sure, but you don't like the way the eyeshadow performs. So there's absolutely no reason for you to hold on to it. None whatsoever. Okay, I'm also going to get rid of this Gatheron Sisters palette from Colourpop. I don't like Colourpop Cosmetics, and I keep buying their palettes because they are cute. Like, the packaging, 10 out of 10. I really love what they did with the packaging. I've used this palette once. Some of these shades are untouched, never been swatched, any of that. The color story, beautiful. It's just that the Colourpop formula is honestly kind of meh. Ever since I used the collab palette that they did with Robbie T. Christie, what is that? At Foresight. Ever since I use that, I've been trying to find that formula in these other palettes, and I have not been able to find it. And I just think that I need to accept the fact that Colourpop is not for me. This is like my third or fourth Colourpop palette, and I have decluttered or gotten rid of all of them except the At Foresight one, because that's the only one that I feel like the formula is one that I really do appreciate. So, get rid of that one. Used it literally like once. Okay, I'm also going to get rid of the Sugar Drizzle palette. Like, this is a really nice palette if you are looking for that indie makeup sparkle and shine. it is just a little bit of a chaotic color story for me. I don't think that I would have put these mattes with these shimmers. It just feels a little bit all over the place the more that I look at it. But this shade Flawed here is a beautiful multi-chrome. This is also a really beautiful coppery shade. The shades in here are gorgeous, and there are some multi-chromes, so I think that this is a really nice palette for someone that's looking to get into multi-chromes, kind of want it in a palette format, but the color story doesn't seem very cohesive to me, and it's a palette that I feel like I have to reach into other mattes to then use it with the shimmers in there. It just didn't feel like it was well pulled together, so gotta go. Got to go. I have no room for these. Why am I singing? Moving along, next up is the Wine palette from Glamlight. Now, this was a part of their drink collection. Well, I don't even know what the collection was called, but it was all themed off of drinks. There was a chocolate martini, dirty martini, wine, and then I think a pink martini. No, a margarita. This was my least favorite of the three. It is a pink purple kind of color story. The formulation in here is amazing. Like, the formulation here, this formula definitely felt less special than the other two, but at the end of the day, the mattes, Glamlight's mattes and shimmers are superb. The reason why I'm getting rid of this one is because I have the ABH purple palette. I think is the number 5. It's the ABH Norvina number 5 palette, I believe. And that is an entire purple color story. So it really does capture all of these shades. So I don't need this one. So because it feels a little duplicative to have both, even though I like those two formulas for two different reasons, this is just one that it would get lost in the quantity of palettes that I had. So it's gotta go. I'm also going to get rid of my Saga of Freya palette from Odin's Eye Cosmetics. Odin's Eye is such a good brand. They put a lot of thought into their palettes, everything from the packaging to the shades. This is a really beautiful palette. I think I've tried this once, maybe twice, at most twice. And I love an orange and green color story. I do think that the formulation in this Saga of Freya palette is different slightly than the formulation in the collab palette that they did with Tina and Annette and Judy. And I like this one a little bit less. And I could see myself reaching for this a little bit less. It has basically green and orange eyeshadow, which means that your look is going to be either green or orange or some combination of the both. And I like my palettes. What I'm beginning to realize is that I like my palettes to have a little bit more versatility. I don't like monochromatic palettes and I don't like duochromatic palettes. I know that's not a word, but you guys see where I'm going with this. If I can only get one type of look out of a palette or just two types of looks, it's not one that I want to reach for. I want to be able to have one with enough variation that I feel like I can get 5 or 6 different looks out of it. So this is one that I feel a little bit less inspired by. It's not that the quality is terrible. It's just that I feel like, okay, I get 3 looks and that's it. Green, orange, orange and green. That I feel like I wanted a little bit more. We only have a couple palettes left, and yay, because I wanted this to be a short, quick video. So I'm getting rid of this Buxom Boss Babe Betty palette. It's a warm neutral palette. I've used it once. It does what it does. Literally a warm neutral palette. There's nothing special about this. I would quicker reach for my Natasha Denona bronze palette over this, so I'm definitely not going to get any use out of this. Just realistically, I'm never going to use this again, so I'm gonna get rid of it. It's not bad. It's actually really nice quality. It's just gonna get lost in my collection. Another one that's actually really phenomenal quality is this Planet Fanatic palette from KVD Vegan Beauty. This, I believe, was the second palette release from the brand. Now, this is quite special in my opinion. The formula in here is really nice. It's soft. It works well. This palette was actually made in Italy. I think the packaging is egregious. It's giving Claire's. It's giving cheap, which is the one thing that I really, really dislike about this palette. It's like these little cheap stars. Like, come on, don't do that. I do like that it's a clear thing so you can see what the packaging is. The other version that they had before this one was like cardboard and it was equally bad. But it does feel pretty cheap. Now, that being said, the quality of the shadows in here are phenomenal. I love, love, love the shimmers in this. The mattes, not so much because they are very light for my complexion. So that's why this one's gotta go, because it really is the mattes. I just needed a little bit more depth. Like, all of the matte shades are really light for me. And it's a palette that can't stand on its own for someone of my complexion. It's a palette that needs some deeper mattes. But those shimmers, they be shimming. They are shimmy, shimming. Okay, I'm also going to get rid of these two Pat McGrath little mini palettes. I've had these for some time. Like, I think I got them in like 2020, 2021. This was when I was just getting into Pat McGrath. And these little baby palettes, they are a really good introduction to the brand. I think they were like $14 a piece. So they were really affordable, and now that I have all of Patricia's palettes, they are redundant. The shades in this are the exact same shades in the Mothership that has the colorful Decadence in the Decadence palette. So I have all these shades already, so having minis of it doesn't make any sense. And then these neutral shades, I'm pretty sure these were also pulled from Bronze, Temptation, or Seduction, or one of them. None of these shades here are new. None of these shades here are special. They're all pulled from previous palettes from Pat McGrath. I have pretty much all of them. So this is just unnecessary because I would reach for those other palettes over that one. So something I'm going to get rid of. I'll see if my siblings want that. And if not, it'll be on my Mercari. Another drugstore palette that I have that's actually really nice, I just don't use, is the Revolution, the Once palette. This was a collab with Emily. I don't know who Emily is. No idea. But it was a collab with Emily. It's a really nice palette. It's a little big in terms of sizing and a little bit harder to store. But it's nice. You get neutrals, you get a little bit of color, some purples, some greens. But it's pretty like heavy on the neutral browns, pinky shades. And I thought that the quality in here was nice. It is good for what it is. It's a nice-ish palette. I'm also going to see if my siblings want this one, if they want to dabble in color a little bit. But yeah, drugstore palettes don't survive in my collection because I have better versions of all of them from these high-end brands. So yeah, so that's going to go. Also, this one is kind of drugstore-y, but also, I'm not really sure anymore. But this is the BH Cosmetics Zodiac Love Signs palette. The shimmers in here are absolutely gorgeous. I have like swatched these and I love them. I love how vibrant these shimmers are. Like, I almost thought about keeping this one. I've never really touched the mattes in this, so I have no idea how the mattes are. So you do get these eyeshadows. You get some matte shades, and then there's like a highlighter in the center, and all of these work really well. I will say that I found that the shimmers did fade on me a little bit throughout the day when I wore them, but overall, it is a really beautiful palette, beautiful formula, and I'm kind of sad that I'm getting rid of this one because I really do like it, that kind of baked eyeshadow formula, but it wasn't getting used, and I need to use my makeup, so yeah, this one's gonna go. Tear. Sad face. Okay, two palettes left. This one is relatively new to my collection. This is the Luna Beauty Eternal Eclipse palette. This was in a real recent ranking of the last 10 eyeshadow palettes that I used. It is a lovely, lovely palette. There is just one shade that's a dud. This one here is the only dud shade. It's the only one that I had a lot of problems with. Everything else in here works fine. But I feel like one dud shade was one too much for me. And that shade broke me. Like, the mattes in this, some of the best mattes that I've tried. Really good depth. All of these show up on me. Loved the mattes in this. This bottom row, stunning. And all of these, you know, these two shades and these two shades worked well. It was literally just this one shade. And I was like, I can't do it. Cannot do it. So rather than sit here and be bitter about this palette, I'm just going to get rid of it. It's a really good one, though. Like, the Luna Beauty formula is such a good one. The nude palette that they have, baby, that is amazeballs. And lastly, I'm going to end on a pretty surprising one. I'm going to get rid of a Pat McGrath quad. This is the Celestial Divinity Luxe Quad in Fleur Fantasia. I've talked about this quad before in my palette, in my Pat McGrath quad rankings, which I will try to remember to link down below. And I believe this was at the bottom of that rankings, because this is a really light quad. It is one of those quads that is very springy, very light, very airy. That's just not my vibe. I need a little bit of depth. Typically in Pat McGrath's palettes, you always find shades that have really good depth or can be built up to a really good depth. Like I always say this, I never have an issue with Pat McGrath and having dusty mattes on me, and I felt like this one was borderline dusty. Is it really dusty? No. Like, I can use it, it works for me, it's not dusty, but it was borderline. And I have an obscene amount of Pat McGrath palettes, and because of that, I would never reach for that one. So it's been sitting in my collection because I like to collect Pat McGrath, and it felt like really nice to have the complete set. But the reality is I wasn't going to use it ever, and I would rather just give it away to somebody else who will, because I'm not going to use it. So that is it. So that's all of the palettes that, you know, are in my declutter pile right now. I'm going to quickly run through the ones that I talked about in my basket of shame video, because I don't know which order these two videos are going to go up in, but I want to have all of these together. And I will put a little bit, a counter at the bottom of the video at the end that shows how much palettes I'm getting rid of, because I'm not exactly counting right now. But yes, for that, what I took out of my basket of shame, all of these Sweet Shop palettes, with the exception of one, the blue one, all of them are getting decluttered. The Too Faced Cinnamon Swirl palette. This is one that I really wanted for the collection. Like, it's beautiful packaging, it smells amazing, it's a really gorgeous neutral color story, but Too Faced repeats this color story every year, so there was absolutely no reason for me to keep this. The Nabla Poison Garden palette, this was again another one made in Italy. Nabla has some of the best formulas and really great textures, one that I haven't touched at all, and also one that I feel like is getting lost and I would never return to, so that one's gotta go. The Posh Culture Carnival palette. This is an all matte rainbow colorful palette. Truthfully, I would reach for my Blend Bunny palette over this one. So because I know that if I want color, I would quicker reach for blends over this, I'm just gonna get rid of this. It hits my heart because I really do like things that are themed around my culture. It wouldn't get used. The Child palette from Colourpop Cosmetics. This one did come a little bit damaged, but I haven't used this at all. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to. I know this is one that people love and they talk about, but I don't watch Star Wars. And I am not invested in the franchise. And this is a monochromatic green palette. I'm not going to use that. Also, speaking of monochromatic, the Sydney Grace California Coast palette. Beautiful, but definitely not one that I'm going to use. I've swatched this one, but I've never actually put it on my eyes. It's a mauvey monochromatic palette, so it's definitely not one I'm going to reach for. The IBY palette. This is a really beautiful neutral one. I really kind of want to try the formula on this, but I'm never going to get to it. So this one is going to go. And lastly, this one is still on the kind of maybe chopping block. The Hella palette from Odin's Eye. This was the collab with Angelica Nyquist. And I don't know, this color story doesn't call to me, but I know that I like the formula in these palettes. So I'm like torn on whether or not I want to keep this. I'm really torn. I think I'm going to hold on to this for now. I should at least try it. I'm going to hold on to it. I'm going to try it, and then I'll decide if it's getting decluttered. So that's all of the palettes that I'm getting rid of. I will have a little blurb. It should be popping up right now that just says how many palettes that I'm decluttering. That is where I'm at right now. There may be more in the future, but I'm not a big declutterer person just generally. It is what it is. Oh wait, no, there are two more. There's these two little Smashbox palettes that I'm getting rid of, probably giving to my siblings. One is this warm neutral color story, and the other is this green color story. And that's officially it. That is all of the palettes that I'm getting rid of. So I'll have it down here how many palettes that I'm decluttering. And yeah, that's it for today's video. If you liked today's video, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe on your way out if you haven't already done so. Join the family. We have lots of fun here. It's a vibe. It's a good time. Yeah, so like, subscribe, share with a friend if you think they'll enjoy the content as well. And that's it from me. As always, I love you guys. Thank you so very much for watching, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye.